Friday morning, 2-minute drill. Jim Monaghan, Chris Swendeman, and our guest this morning, Charlotte Carroll, who covers the Giants for The Athletic. Charlotte, good morning, and let's start with the obvious. It's Tommy DeVito's team. This has been the first real week that he's had most of the reps at QB1. What are we looking for from him this week?
Yeah, I think you're looking at Tommy DeVito's confidence. He's come in, he's an undrafted free agent signing. He's a rookie. He'll be making his first NFL start. And, he's talked about how excited he is and how fun it's going to be. And he's going to have plenty of family there. I think it'll be fun for him. Whether it's fun for fans watching is another story, what this offense looks like. But it's a good experience for the rookie.
Charlotte, one of the things from your Thursday article that you wrote for The Athletic, I noticed was you kind of wrote out a detailed timeline of where do they go from here for the Giants. And one of the things you kind of mentioned is, the dreaded T word. Do they not necessarily come out and say it, but do they tank from here on out to kind of rebuild for the future? What do you see the team doing from, a big game in Dallas this weekend to the end of the season, which they have a hard schedule ahead of them?
Yeah, they're never going to come out right and say that they're tanking. No team, no coach wants to do that. You lose the locker room kind of that way. You lose a lot, I think, of respect. So it's just kind of, they're focused on this game, what they can do. I think where you see clarity, we don't know what's going to happen with Daniel Jones in the year beyond. But if they finish, we're in a position to draft a top one or top two pick. I think they have to draft a quarterback just to kind of build themselves for the future, because they didn't go out and sign, not that there's a ton of options, a more experienced kind of third guy this week. They settled with a younger guy in Jacob Eason. So I think that kind of is an interesting indication with the way you look at it. But they're going to roll with Tommy DeVito, and we'll see too if Matt Barkley plays at some point during his time here.
Yeah, that could be what, plan D? And, most teams go into a season with a plan A and a plan B, and heaven forbid a plan C. The Giants would be on plan D if DeVito goes down at this point. That's not something anybody wants to see.
I don't even want to think about what plan number that would be. I feel like that's plan Z. Just watching the amount of injuries this season has been comical, especially the offensive line. It's just insane the way that the number is kind of added up. It's crazy.
One of the other things that you wrote about this week was if DeVito does well, maybe he shows the Giants he could be a viable quarterback. And in some cases, Charlotte, I think that might be the absolute worst thing that could happen for the Giants, because they could be looking, go, hey, maybe we've got something here. And they don't make a long-term decision that they need to make.
Yeah, I think the way I was looking at that is that he's maybe like a viable backup option down the road. If depending upon obviously the record, but if they're able to get a top one or two draft pick, I think they still go quarterback for one of those top guys who's there. And then Tommy DeVito is maybe the backup of the future, is kind of how I was thinking about that. Obviously, you'll still have Daniel Jones under contract next year. What happens beyond that is interesting. But you're looking at Tyrod Taylor, who's the other third quarterback on this roster, who's out until at least the bye with a rib injury. He will no longer be under contract, so he'll be a free agent. So that's kind of where I was thinking, Tommy DeVito is QB number 3 in this scenario.
And what about Daniel Jones in all this? I know earlier in the week you had mentioned in one of your articles, even John Mara came out and basically said, the owner, and said, we ruined this kid. Where does he go from here? For me, I've been telling Jim for a while now, for the Giants, it should be #collapse for Caleb. But other than that, where do they go? Daniel Jones is at least going to be here another year, but he was never the guy under this regime. Is this where they hit the reset button and say, okay, we need to draft our guy? Or does Daniel Jones have any hope to come back and be a part of this team long term?
I don't know. I think we'll see kind of what happens and how the record plays out if there's an opportunity for a quarterback. This regime, I guess they kind of adopted him when they signed him to this extension. So he is part of their plan. You're right. He's not like their guy that they're able to develop. And I think that'd be fascinating as we've watched Brian Dable come from Buffalo and what he was able to do with Josh Allen. So that's kind of tempting to think about. But what this looks like for Daniel Jones, I don't know. It's really interesting. He got paid, so you're happy for a guy to get paid like that. But what it means with the franchise, I'm not quite sure. There is the opt-out kind of expensive option after 2024. but we'll see if they pull that card or if they go quarterback. It's really, I feel like, too early to say. The fun thing about predictions is you can be wrong and who knows what's going to happen. But these are just things that you're starting to have to consider a lot earlier than everyone anticipated coming off the playoff win last year.
Charlotte, it's obviously a quarterback-driven league. The Giants are not the only team that are having that's having a quarterback problem. You look at Mahomes; he's looked average in a couple of games. Josh Allen, I think, has been mediocre for a number of games as well. The Jets made Jalen Hurts look very, very bad on one of the games. Obviously what's going on with Mac Jones and the Patriots? What do you think is the underlying reason behind all these quarterback issues?
A great question. I don't know the answer to that one. If I find out, I'll make some money, I think.
Write it in the Athletic.
Need to switch some professions, I think, if I'm able to figure that one out and make some impact. But it's definitely fascinating to kind of see play out, especially in the context with the Giants now and the bottom tier teams of, like Chicago and Carolina, Washington. Like, how is this all going to play out now that my brain is starting to think a little bit more draft heavy?
You can read her coverage of the Giants in the Athletic. Follow her on Twitter at Charlotte Carroll. Carroll with C, 2 R's, 2 L's, leaves the vowels out. Charlotte, thank you for your time this morning on the 2-Minute Drill. Appreciate talking to you.
Thanks for having me on.